Greg Anderson, Free Range American. We've been trying to do this for, 3 months, 4 months?
Yeah, I ducked you for a little while. My bad.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm used to it. Trevor ducks me all the time. Every day. So did you just come in from Seattle?
Yeah, I drove in. I slept in, Snowville?
Okay.
In the back of my 4Runner and got in this morning. So
did you come in by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was actually telling Trevor before you got here, it was fucking amazing because in my house I have 3 kids, 2 cats, 2 dogs, and a tarantula. And it's fucking pandemonium. So a road trip is actually relaxing.
Yeah. I totally get that actually. Because I've got 2 little girls and that abomination of an animal I call a dog. That thing is. Yeah. So I get that. Dude, so let's just get right into it.
Let's do it.
So you were fired.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. So give us your background on this because this whole thing, I don't want to get too pissed off.
No, let's get pissed off.
I don't want to get too pissed off if you're like, oh, it's my fault. Don't worry about it.
No. So here's the deal.
Okay.
Let's spin this right.
Yeah, let's spin it right up, man. Let's spin the top.
Let's go back to May 5th.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
When I decided to make Instagram video.
Right.
So I was a patrol officer. I was in law enforcement for 10 years with a couple different agencies.
Right.
And in Los Angeles, and then I moved to Seattle. And it was actually a really good agency, the Port of Seattle.
Right.
I enjoyed working for that agency. I thought I had a good chain of command. There wasn't a lot of drama. There wasn't a lot of politics. And for the first time in a long time, I was like, oh, I think I can actually do this job. Because Los Angeles was a different story. But once the COVID thing kicked off, and you kept seeing officers nationwide, like arresting moms at parks,
right?
Arresting surfers. Like, did you see that? There's a video like 2 boats chasing a surfer down.
Yeah.
And
that was a good one.
It's just ridiculous,
with people
right?
on the beach in masks watching.
Right.
And so I kept seeing more and more and more of this stuff. And every single cop that I would talk to, like in the lunchroom, or I mean, I got cops all over, they're friends of mine from all over the country.
Right.
Just like you do, just from being in the military.
Yeah.
Every single person I talked to was appalled with what we were seeing. And so I went to my chain of command. I went to the chief of police. I went to my sergeant. And I was like, hey, where do you guys stand on this stuff? Because based on how I understand our authority and how we're able to enforce law, this seems very unconstitutional. And they both agreed with me. They said, this department will never ask you to do that kind of stuff because we agree with you, which was like a relief, right?
Right.
Because I'm not going to do that shit anyways.
Right.
So if it came down to it, you're going to have to fire me for not enforcing your COVID bullshit.
Right.
But every single cop that I knew agreed with me. And I kept seeing more and more of it. So I was on patrol one day and I saw the video of the 2 Mexican ladies that did nails out of their house. They ran like a nail salon.
Yeah.
They got arrested for it.
Right.
And so I was like, that's it. I can't fucking take it anymore. This message needs to come out from a uniformed officer, one of your own, speaking to other uniformed officers. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And I was on patrol and I didn't rehearse it. It wasn't practice. It wasn't planned. I just held my phone up and I said, listen, guys, this is what we are allowed to do as police officers. This is what we're not allowed to do. We don't get to violate people's constitutional rights because your governor thinks it's a good idea.
Right.
You swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, just like we did in the military. It's very cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem like there's much gray area. It doesn't seem like it's up for negotiation. But for whatever reason, cops all over the country weren't adhering to their oath. And so I felt compelled to make that video. And my chain of command hit me up the next morning and they're like, that video was awesome. The patrol commander, highest ranking guy in patrol.
Right.
He's like, we have your back 100%. That video was awesome. And I still got that text message, And then he called me like 3 hours later and was like, I've been directed by higher to tell you that video has to be taken down. And I said, well, sir, a couple hours ago was a good message.
Right.
And now you want it to be taken down. He goes, well, one of the chiefs thinks that it's just getting too big. We just checked it. It's over 400,000 views.
Right.
I said, well, if it's a good message that you guys supported 3 hours ago, why is it a problem that it's getting big? Wouldn't that be a good thing?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, Chief Thomas told me that it needs to come down. I said, well, Chief Thomas has my fucking phone number.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He can tell me.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, I'll call you back in a little bit. Because they're not used to guys just drawing hard lines.
Right.
You know, like guys like us that came from the community that we came from and saw the things that we saw and did the things we did. Like, we're not going to take shit from some patrol commander.
Right.
You know? Or like compromise my values or my ethics.
Right.
And so they called me back and they said, hey, we had a meeting. It has to come down. I said, well, it's not coming down. I said, the whole point of that video was imploring police officers to stand behind what they believe and do the right thing. And now you're telling me to bow down to an order that I just don't feel like is morally right.
Right.
And said, well, if you're not willing to do that, we're going to have to put you on administrative leave. And then we're going to have to do an investigation for, insubordination. I said, okay, you do what you got to do.
Right.
I said, if you got to fire me for it, then you fire me for it. But it's just interesting that a couple hours ago, this was all good. And now it's this huge problem.
Right.
And so they put me on administrative leave the next day. And it took the investigation was 2 months long. And then they fired me on August 7th for insubordination and conduct unbecoming of an officer. So, and I got the runaround from everybody because you know how it is. Higher up's all political, no matter what organization you're part of.
Yeah.
And they're all sucking dick and kissing ass and trying to save face.
Right.
And there was one chief of police who got fired right after me, ironically, who told me, he goes, Greg, the department stands behind your message. I know you're a good officer. I tried to stand behind you. He goes, but you spoke against the governor's office and there was nothing we could do. So he didn't directly tell me that it came from the governor, but it kind of sounded like it. So who knows, man,
So what happens now? I mean, do you file a lawsuit or anything like that? Or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I have an attorney that I had a bunch of attorneys reach out to me just because it was a high profile thing.
Sure.
It was like the biggest case in the country until George Floyd.
And then you have to suss out whether or not they're doing it for their own self-interest.
Yeah.
Like, are you really trying to do this out of goodness of your heart? Or
And so what they recommended is that we file a letter of demand with the Port of Seattle and saying, hey, if you're willing to settle for this much, we'll walk away.
Right.
And we just got word from Port of Seattle last week that they told us to go fuck ourselves.
Oh, buddy.
So we'll see what's next. I don't know. It's interesting how that happened on May 5th. And then 2 weeks later, the George Floyd thing happened.
Right.
And then Seattle just started burning to the ground. And everybody hates police officers there.
Right.
So in hindsight, it's almost like everything worked out,
Well, it's wild to me because as I watch this kind of unfold from afar, I'm thinking to myself, isn't there a point in which somebody says he's right? We're violating constitutional rights. That's already actually been proven that they were violating constitutional rights. So
in the courts,
you make a statement, essentially being the guy that's qualifying what's happening within the law enforcement community when a bunch of law enforcement officers agree with you. And not only does the law enforcement officers agree with you, the Constitution agrees with you. And then you're fired because you said something that was constitutionally correct. That seems so fucking bizarre to me.
Well,
I guess I don't quite understand.
They had to find a loophole, right? So what they said was, I violated the department's social media policy.
So what is the...
And they said you can't be on social media and speak for the Port of Seattle or speak as a Port of Seattle police officer.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, if you look at the video, I turned my hat around.
Right.
Because it says Port of Seattle on the front.
Right.
I held the camera in a manner where my badge was never displayed. So I understand our policy.
Right.
And the other side of that is past practice.
Mm-hmm.
There's 100 cops a day doing bullshit online.
TikTok videos.
TikTok videos. But
all over.
Yeah. And if you're doing anything that supports a left agenda, I could have got on and talked about trans rights or BLM or any of that shit. Nobody cares. But because I pushed back against our leftist communist governor, they had to try and stomp me out, So they said, it was a violation of our social media our policy, and because you wouldn't take it down, now it's insubordination. It wasn't about the message, Greg. It wasn't about the message. They kept telling me that the whole time until at the end, the chief told me, well, yeah, it actually was about the message. So,
well, of course it was.
Of course it was. Yeah.
I mean,
and I just hate how they can't shoot me straight. That's why I told them. I said, if you guys don't want me to fucking work for you because I stand up for the Constitution, just fucking say that. Yeah. It's real simple, and I'll fucking walk away. But you want to play games and point fingers and try and just pretend this is something different than it is, then fuck you guys, fire me.
Yeah, and the other thing is the governor has that ability. He can meet you in court.
Yeah.
He can say, hey, you know what? We don't believe in the Constitution in the state of Washington. We're going to violate people's civil liberties, their rights, openly do that, and then we'll meet you in court.
Exactly.
Like, just be a man. Hold on, no, I should rewind. This is the same governor that 2 or 3 weeks into CHOP or Chaz or whatever kind of bullshit thing that they got, whatever pretend government that they were standing up there in La La Land that didn't know anything about it. The most prominent news story in America.
Yeah.
You couldn't turn anything on
without hearing CHOP or Chaz, whatever it was. At that point.
Was
it CHOP or Chaz?
They changed their name like halfway through.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, I don't know what that is. It's like, well, then you should be fired instantly for either one of two things. And I was saying this on one of our podcasts, which was like, one, you're either avoiding the question, you're either grossly incompetent because it's the largest city in your state, dumb. So you're grossly incompetent for not knowing what's going on, or you're just avoiding the question
and lying.
So you're either unethical, or you're incompetent.
So either way,
probably both.
You need to get the fuck out.
Yeah, either way, get the fuck out. But as you and I were talking about this, and I've talked about this a few times. I lived in Seattle for several years. I was back and forth from like 97, back and forth. And Seattle obviously is known for coffee. And I used to love that city, man. Like, and especially with our subculture of people, I'd always end up defending the city. Like, no, man, it's pretty cool. Like, it's really
a cool place, man.
It is. It's a cool place.
And it was, man.
Don't let the patchouli smell get to you.
Well, and like we were saying, I was like, hey, I used to be fine with, you could coexist with the fucking weirdos in Seattle in the Fremont area. Fremont, for instance, has this, it's like a 30-foot bronze statue of Lenin. And
it also has a large troll.
Yeah, and it also has a large troll. But it was like, whatever, man. Like people are people. Like, I mean,
Seattle was cool, man.
It's cool. And then I went back there, and that was when the city had decided that your domicile could be your car, and you couldn't tow those vehicles. So vehicles were everywhere. Homeless people are like zombies walking around nonstop. And I've got 2 little kids. You got dudes walking around with their penises hanging out and fucking needles, like literally holding on to needles with dicks wagging. Those porta potties are set up in parks and on the corners of the streets. And you're just like,
and they're in
you can't go anywhere. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, if I want to raise a kid in a city, I really do. No offense to anyone else, but I really do want to raise a child free of seeing a grown man's penis hanging out of his pants with him holding fucking IVs or needles in his hand, walking down the street like a fucking zombie. So, and I don't give a shit if anybody is offended by that. It's a shithole now. It's a shithole.
And like I said, they've legalized heroin.
Right.
They don't prosecute anything. They especially don't prosecute criminal trespass, which is like, for a patrol level officer, that's kind of your fallback always. Right. If you're telling someone to get out of here and they won't, you can hook them on that.
Right.
And the prosecutors won't take drug charges. They won't take trespass charges. And now they've said that they can put their tents up wherever they want within the city limits. And you can't even ask them to move.
That's insane.
So the people that are really suffering
your land is
are
not
the
your
business
land.
owners.
Right.
Because like just like you said, you don't want your kids to see that stuff. Everybody I know is like, I don't take my family to Pike Place anymore. Right. I don't go to Seattle. The last time I took my daughters to Pike Place, and I have 3 daughters, and they're 5, 8, and 11. And we went to Pike Place like a year ago.
Right.
And we come up these stairs, and he's probably 22 years old. This kid laying on the ground, ODing, foaming at the mouth. And I stopped and I said, girls, look at him. And my oldest is like, Dad, don't. This is embarrassing. I said, no, I want you to look at him. This is what happens when you make poor life choices and you get addicted to drugs. And like that kind of freaked him out. But the bizarre thing about it is everyone was just walking right by him because it's normal now.
Right.
Like no one was calling 911. No one was looking for Narcan. It's just, another addict ODing, just stepping right over him and going about their day. And like, it's become so normal that most people are afraid to take their family downtown anymore. You know?
Yeah. Well, I was watching some show. I think it was a documentary on Seattle, and they were talking about how the morning trash crew, they're literally shoveling needles, using snow shovels to shovel up needles to put them in trash bags.
It's terrifying.
No, it's terrifying.
That is not their job.
I'm just wondering, and maybe I'm just too dumb to understand what the long-term goal of any city council member, what is their long-term goal when it comes to something like this? These policies and taking away the ability for law enforcement to do their job, because I've seen it. I've seen this this drastic eroding of just the ability for law enforcement to clean up the streets. They can't do it. Wait, you live there. Try to explain.
I honestly,
to me.
And I'm as lost as you are in trying to apply logic to it. But the only thing that I can think of is that the radical left, by appealing to these groups of people, are just hoping to garner votes. That has to be what's going on. They don't give a shit about people's health. Right. They don't give a shit about, it's the same thing with BLM. Like, do you think all these politicians care about inner city violence and the lack of education and all? I mean, I used to work in Compton. Nobody is helping these people.
Right.
So every election cycle comes around and it's like, oh, the minorities, oh, the gays, oh, the transgenders, oh, the homeless. And then as soon as the election's over, nobody helps any of those groups of people. So it's just fucking lip service.
Well,
you know?
and when they turn officers off to the ability to push people off of property, like private property, like, no, there's no criminal trespass. That's exactly how you get people to turn into criminals. That's how you get law-abiding citizens to turn into criminals when they're told, now as an officer showing up, we can't get him off.
Yeah.
And they just hang out there. Once you guys leave, what the fuck is that person going to do?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to make that person leave.
So
like, they're trying to burn my car down.
Right.
I got to fix this. That's my personal property. You're going to turn me into a criminal.
Right.
Because I need them to go away because I'm terrified for either myself, my customers, my family, my property that I paid for.
Right.
Come on.
I'm a business owner. You're a business owner. Like, if someone set a tent up in front of my front door, they're going to get fucking booted in the head. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not handle it myself. And I actually have a story about that because there's a family-owned rental property just north of Seattle. It's like 20 minutes north of the city.
Right.
And my mom manages it. It's just it was a small house that she rented out. One of her tenants left. And in between renting it to a new tenant, you know what happened? The Walking Dead moved in.
Right.
And there was like 12 of them inside of there. And she calls me and she's like, hey, there's like 12 people in there. What do I do? I said, well, call the police. And so she called the police and they went out there and some fucking drug addict came to the door. Was like, no, here's a lease. We have a lease to be here. So the police, you can just go to fucking Office Depot or whatever,
make one
and get a lease and just forge a name. And now it becomes civil because you have to go through the courts to get them evicted. This is fucking Seattle. And, so the officer called her back. He's like, actually, they have a lease. You're gonna have to go through the courts. So my mom's like, well, I'm gonna shut the power and the water off. Then that'll get him out of there.
Yeah, but they can't do that, right?
Oh, she did it.
Oh, okay,
right.
It didn't do a goddamn thing. It just made him shit and piss in buckets instead of the toilet. Right. And so then I called the sheriff's department. I said, listen, I'm a police officer myself. We tried to go the legal route.
Right.
I'm gonna go in there armed, and I'm gonna evict them by force. And if I end up fucking shooting someone, I end up shooting someone because that's my fucking house.
Right.
We asked you guys for help. No one wanted to help. Oh, you're a police officer? Hey, meet us at the corner or whatever. They sent like 4 patrol cars and we threw them all out and arrested a couple of them. But it's like, what about everybody else that isn't a police officer?
Exactly.
Right.
Why is that what it takes?
Why is that what it takes? Exactly. And so, I mean, this is what's going on throughout the city, everywhere. And most people, I mean, guys like us that have been in special operations, like, I have no qualms with going in there and throwing a bunch of fucking drug addicts out of my house.
Right.
And if it escalates to a lethal force encounter, fucking good, right? But most people aren't ready to do that. Most people should be able to rely on the system to walk them through that they pay for, to walk them through the process and then assist them if need be. But it's not the case anymore.
Well, I think that
God, that's like calling the fire department and being like, there's a fire in my house. And they go, did you start it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, I did. Sorry, that's not on us.
That's not on us, you know.
The fuck is that about?
That's on your stove.
That's
your stove. That's your stove.
You should ask your stove to stop.
You know?
Here's the saddest part about it, because the officer or the deputy on the patrol level, they want to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most cops, contrary to all the bullshit that you hear, are good people. They want to do the right thing, and their fucking hands are tied.
Well, I think that's the thing that I don't quite understand is where is it broken at the city level? Is that where it's broken? Like, are the judges at kind of the local municipalities across the United States, are they not enforcing law? Is that
what
where
I think?
the system?
This is what I think the biggest problem is. Chiefs of police are appointed by the city council.
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
So then,
gotcha.
How the law is enforced in that jurisdiction, there's huge political undertones.
Got it.
Because they're pandering.
Right.
Whereas sheriffs, and that's in city limits, but within the county, sheriffs are elected by the people.
Gotcha.
So sheriffs answer to the people, whereas chiefs of police answer to the city council. That's why you
see that cutting both ways.
Which is why you see
in counties
massive issues between
cities.
sheriff's departments and police departments.
Absolutely.
Because the sheriff is like, dude, the people can get rid of me next year. Like,
but I see that. I could see that cutting both ways.
Easily.
I could see you having,
and it has,
a super fucking squared away police department, police chief, and then a piece of shit elected sheriff.
Yeah, no,
I can see it.
It happens.
Like, I could see it going both ways, but I could see. I'm just wondering, in a lot of these cities, right? What you just explained it, and it makes so much sense, which is the city council, and then obviously when they look at the chief of police. So, for instance, you and I probably have a ton of friends that we know a ton of guys in Seattle because I used to hang out with and train with guys from Seattle PD, and I knew guys that I was in 19th group from Seattle PD, and every one of those dudes is like, man, our hands are tied. We cannot do anything. Like, we could see somebody on the side of the street shooting up, breaking a fucking window into a car, and we'll be sitting there going, hey, can we get you a glass of water? You look like you might be parched. And that's the right move.
And I mean, I worked in Seattle for 3 years, so I wasn't there very long, but I was there from 2017 to 2020.
Right.
And watching the amount of decay that overtook that city in those 3 years was fucking mind-boggling. And most of it, I'm going to say 95% of it, of what you deal with at the patrol level, all drug related. It's either the people themselves scaring people or camping in front of places, like just doing annoying homeless shit. The other side of it is to get their fix and support their habit. They're breaking into cars.
Right.
They're stealing copper wire out of warehouses. Like, everything that you go to has a nexus that you can tie back to heroin and methamphetamine.
Like, you could empathize and try and help somebody that's just being loud, whatever the case is going on. But God, I mean, breaking into cars, destroying businesses, robbing people, and it all comes down to the one issue.
Yeah.
And then your hands are tied. Like, the hell are you supposed to do?
And I mean, to tell you the truth, like, I lean more libertarian.
Yeah.
And victimless crimes, like, I don't think should necessarily be prosecuted. So if you want to fucking shoot a bunch of drugs into your body,
It's your body.
it's your body,
Go
right?
for it.
But the second that your habit causes you to infringe on somebody else's livelihood, like putting your tent in front of their front door or breaking their car window, we need to hammer those people.
And there are supposed to be laws for that. And we are paying taxes to have people enforce them.
The laws are on the books.
Yeah.
But the big word in law enforcement is discretion.
Right.
Like in Washington State, there's only 2 shalls. You shall arrest.
Right.
It's somebody who's a repeat DUI offender or someone that is involved in a domestic violence assault. Like, I don't have a choice if I'm going to arrest that person or not.
Right.
Everything else is discretion.
Whoa.
And so it's got to a point where it's affecting officers from both sides. Because if you want to be proactive,
right,
and you're going out there and you're hooking dudes and you're making arrests, almost every arrest that happened in my department, 4 weeks later, you get a letter, an email from the prosecutor's office, and it says, "We appreciate your efforts and the work that you put into this case. Unfortunately, we have chosen to deny prosecuting charges on this. Please don't let this deter you from making future arrests." I mean, you can only make so many arrests and be proactive for so long, and it gets shit on every single time, that officers are going to be like, what am I doing? I'm just going to go have coffee with the boys.
Yeah, they just turn into a robot. Like,
what's the point of going out there? Because every time you fucking frisk a drug addict, there's a risk of getting stuck with a needle.
Yeah.
There's a risk of him turning around and spitting in your face and fighting you.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear the most bizarre shit. I've had guys, or this was actually a gal, pulled her pants down and shit everywhere, and then leaned over, picked it back up, and was shoving it back into her pockets. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you deal with on a patrol level. And if you're trying to enforce the law and clean the city up, and the city's not helping you, most officers to a point where they're like, fuck this, dude.
I guess I just don't understand it. And maybe I don't talk to a diversified pool of people enough, but Seattle was one of the earlier cities to kind of turn the corner into, more of, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, right?
Yep.
Like they started adopting more socialist agenda really early. And, these are beautiful cities, by the way. Like, every one of those cities is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And, I remember very, very acutely going to San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle, because those are also big coffee cities, spending a lot of time at Seattle or at the Seattle coffee festivals and like going to coffee shops and seeing this is starting to take on some speed.
Yeah.
And Denver too. I think after kind of the legalization of marijuana, I think that really sped up or amplified what was happening within those communities. I'm not exactly sure. I could be completely wrong. They're socialist, very progressive adoption of that type of an agenda. Then the legalization of marijuana, which actually I'm for, because I'm all about people getting their rights back.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
just
I'm
like
all
you said,
for that.
It's a victimless. If it's
a victimless
for yourself,
crime.
Yeah.
The issue is they're doing it to pander. They're not doing it because those people believe in that victimless attitude.
What I heard, and when I was there, was everybody in the city was like, "This fucking sucks. Like, this sucks." So I didn't hear a lot of people saying, "Hey, we need to really be proactive to help the homeless and allow them to camp on our fucking front lawn."
Exactly.
No.
I heard most of the city going, "This fucking sucks. Like, when are we going to do something about this?"
It's to the point where it's like, is this just voter fraud? Are they just rigging the elections? Because you're absolutely right. I live there.
Gerrymandering in
single
reverse.
person I know is like, what the fuck is going on with our cities? And then you got like Jenny Durkin, who's like, oh, it's just the summer of love.
Right.
And just pandering to it, even though everybody is disgusted. So yeah, what is going on? And it's like, it's like these political elite are just creating a path to sustain their own power.
Well, they don't live in the city either. That was the other thing that we were talking about, was especially the city council, specifically in Seattle. They were all living in like Bainbridge, for instance.
Of course.
Because now they're on an island separated by a fucking ferry
with
from
giant
the city.
walls around their compounds.
With giant walls and gates and all this other stuff. So you have this city council that ultimately doesn't have to live there.
Same shit in San Francisco. Where do you think they're living? Probably Marin.
Yeah.
See, exactly. And I mean, fuck, this is a whole nother topic that we could go down a rabbit hole for an hour. But government as a whole was meant to be for the people, of the people, by the people.
Right.
And you go from the plow to going and serving on a city council or as a mayor and for a term, and then you go back to your farm.
Right.
And you represent the people because you're one of them. Now we have career politicians that's their whole agenda. It's just get power, get fame, get money.
Right.
I mean, Jay Inslee, he got called out on this and he even admitted it. He gave himself a raise like 2 months ago in the middle of the pandemic.
Solid.
Where, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, so I'm very connected in the jiu-jitsu community.
Right.
Gyms are having a lot of gyms are being shut down right now. And it's not just my community. There's a lot of businesses that have not survived this quote unquote pandemic. And just for principle alone, when you know a lot of your constituents are fucking losing their businesses and going broke, you give yourself a raise. And when he was asked about it, he goes, well, that was actually something that is just part of a timeline and it's outside of my control. What? Then take that $40,000 or whatever it is and donate it to helping small businesses.
There are politicians that give their money back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
it's just
that's
out of touch.
Leadership, right? Like,
Zero leadership.
These people don't actually know how to lead. They don't know how to lead. They're elected.
They
don't know how to lead
from the electorate. That's what they do.
It's the same thing I said about Nancy Pelosi a couple weeks ago or whatever when she was on CNN talking about how we feed the people.
Was that
she
with Wolf
said,
Blitzer?
Yes.
Oh my God,
we feed the
interview.
people. Dude, that pissed me off so badly because she doesn't do jack or shit without the taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, you don't do anything.
She is not doing anything other than appropriating taxpayer dollars to initiatives that the voters support. You're not, and that's the thing that really pisses me off about this is don't bestow yourself with some kind of fucking benevolent sainthood because you're a fucking politician.
Well, and that's where we're at though.
But that's where they are. It's these people are.
You can see how out of touch the they or she specifically is during that interview when she yelled at Blitzer for being a Trump apologist. And he's like, I'm on CNN.
Blitzer.
Are you crazy?
It's Wolf Blitzer. How dumb are you?
His face was priceless, but that shows how out of touch she is.
Been a reporter
she just turned down what, a $2 trillion package because it didn't fit her $2 trillion.
She wants to cause as much pain as she can.
Crazy person.
You're a crazy person. Use that as a fulcrum to get him out of office.
Yep. And
so
if we suffer and our businesses go under in the meantime, so fucking be it.
No, not even so be it. The worst part to me is they don't care. It's that's not a thing that will affect her, him, they on either side of the aisle.
No.
That's not something that will ever affect them because they don't give a crap.
Yep. I don't know if I posted something a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you guys saw this video or not, but it was Joe Biden talking about taking away guns.
Yeah.
The one where he said, you don't need your AK-47. It's not going to do you any good if you're going up against the U.S. government because we got F-15s with Hellfire missiles on them, which is completely inaccurate.
It's completely inaccurate.
You know, like
I don't know. Maybe
they're retrofitted now.
Maybe they took the F-15 inventory and then put on a rotary ring.
They're rotor driven now.
Exactly. Rotary ring asset on
You're
it.
teaching Apache pilots to fly those.
If you want to be a commander in chief, maybe you should understand your military capabilities. But if you don't, then just shut the fuck up. Don't start talking about something you don't know. But the worst part about that is he said, same thing. He goes, we never said you could have any gun you wanted.
Yeah,
what
never
the
said.
fuck, dude?
Yeah, we never
said. If people aren't appalled by that,
I know.
Dude, that's one step away.
That's a politician who's been in power for half a century.
Yeah.
Power.
Well, he's been in power for 1/5 the fucking United States history.
Exactly.
And it's, now all of a sudden he's going to wake up and roll out of bed and do something for the American public. I don't understand where people can even identify with this guy and go, now's the time. He's going to turn it on now. After 47 years, he's going to turn it on.
Because the country had probably the best example absolutely possible. A time when there were kings and people were taking power for familial generations. And Washington's like, you know what? That's a terrible example. I'm just going to go back to my farm. And he does it.
Uh-huh.
And he sets his precedent. and it stays. And now we have probably a lot of senators and congressmen and women that want that changed.
They
Like,
want it
you know, we really should have a chance to stay in office a little longer.
forever.
Maybe like till I die.
Yeah,
Like the Supreme Court.
forever.
You know what? We should actually change the amount of people in the Supreme Court. Let's do
Right.
that.
And
No.
don't they get a retirement pay for the rest of their life after like one term or some crazy shit like that?
I don't know if it's
not
retirement. I know they get health benefits. I think that's what it is. And
You know, they make more than they deserve for the amount of work they do.
I don't quite, I wish people, because where the left and the right, where we all agree, and it doesn't matter. So when you look at the essentially the root problem of what people are even rioting, if BLM wasn't just kind of a socialist ruse, which it is, but the root problem and what people are really concerned about is really the encroachment on individual liberty.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're
of
like.
course.
Everybody's like, hey, I don't want to be cuffed and stuffed when it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want cops to kill me or my family members. Like, that's pretty easy, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
The right wants the same shit, by the way, guys. Like, that's what we
Surprise.
want. Surprise. Hey. So that's where I think, to your point, which is, as long as if you're not affecting me in a negative way, typically in a physical negative way, like, dude, you do you, man. Like, that's freedom, right? True freedom is living your life and exemplifying who you are in the United States or a state, right? Without having other people telling you how you're going to live your life and what is good and what is bad and all these other things. So when I look at this, I'm saying, if COVID-19, if the BLM protests, if these things haven't shown everybody what the problem is not the population. We all generally agree for the most part, except for fringe elements. The problem is the politicians want to continue to encroach on our civil liberties by taking things from you and giving them to somebody else, or just taking them. This whole entire conversation of,
and doing
I want
it by
to take
driving
your guns,
and by driving division too.
Yeah,
because they get up on a platform and they say, "Look, they hate you.
Yeah,
we will fix that." Now, I'm saying they, meaning I don't care if it's left or right. Whoever that politician, they're standing up and going, "Those people, they hate you.
They hate you."
They're driving division.
No, and everybody's buying it hook, line, and sinker.
They're buying
it's easy. It's intellectually lazy to sit back and go, that person, they're for me.
They're buying
All I got to do is fill the bubble in.
They're buying it hook, line, and sinker. Like, that's the problem, is you look across the United States and you're saying, oh, that politician really cares about me. Specifically. No, they don't give a fuck about you. Bernie Sanders is a great example of that. Bernie Sanders railing against the establishment, railing against corporate and capitalist America. He's a fucking socialist. He's been a socialist his entire career. Now he's out stumping for Biden.
He's a socialist millionaire.
With how many houses?
Yeah, with 3 houses, right? He's this
cool story.
So, where's all these Bernie bros? Like, he's, anti-establishment and all this other shit. And it's like, dude, he's not anti-establishment. He's part of the establishment. All these people are so part of the establishment.
Like, you want to talk to an anti-establishment person? Go to a rafting company or any place that is a crag. There's people living in their cars because they're like, nah, fuck the government. Like, what's that mean?
Government.
It means I eat cat food. I do what I want.
Yeah, that's
I do what I want.
All right, dog, you do.
I hate looking. Like, I see the second and third order effects of this national conversation and where we're at, because you see the mass exodus out of these states, Washington, Oregon, California, all these large metropolitan areas that have adopted socialist policies. You're seeing the mass exodus.
California has such a hard time keeping people in that state that U-Haul has a premium if you're taking a vehicle out of California and not bringing it back.
Oh, shit.
I rented a U-Haul in Yuma, Arizona, drove it to San Diego, drove it up here to Salt Lake, paid for the extra mileage, and it was less than had I just rented it in San Diego.
Because no one's coming
Nobody's
in.
coming back.
coming in. Nobody's going. And that's where what scares me is this national federal conversation where we have an isolation of power with an adoption of these socialist agendas that say, we can't cross the border into Idaho and get away from it. We can't cross the border from California into Texas to get away from it. That's the beauty of all 50 states.
How it works.
That's the beauty of saying, hey guys, we're a constitutional republic that has a foundation of capitalism, but at the end of the day, you can still cross the border if you got a fucked up governor and go, I'm going to go live in Texas where, you know what, we've got open gun laws and,
tigers roaming the streets.
And hey, things are going to be a little bit better out there.
Yeah.
But when you have a very small section of people within a very specific zip code in Washington, D.C., they're throwing edicts over the wall for the national conversation.
We're literally talking a couple hundred people out of 340 million.
Well, and that's the thing.
Couple hundred.
That's fucking scary.
People, listen to that. A couple hundred people are controlling everything in a bad way. And that's because they stay around.
Think if we could unify as a people against them.
Yes.
They'd be overthrown in 15 minutes. And that's why all this fucking division, the flame of division is being fanned constantly,
Because they understand exactly what they have to do. They have to gaslight. They have to continue to amplify things that really we don't give a fuck about. Like, I mean, nobody truly believes when I say this, like, as a guy that runs a company with 400 people, discrimination would be as just, one, it's unethical, two, it's anti-profit. You have to choose the right person for the right job, which means that it's a very diverse pool of people that ultimately make up a very profit-driven and mission-oriented successful organization. So having a kind of a homogenized, unified, sexist, culture is really detrimental to any business. So it's counter-capitalist, which is when Californians talk about, well, we need to put you have to have a person that identifies as a fucking vacuum cleaner on your board, because it's going to be better for business. It's like, okay, where's
the line?
Stop with your bullshit. Stop telling me what's good for my business.
Yeah, you'll figure it out or you'll fail.
Or you're going to fail. Yeah. Exactly. Like, you will fail in today's society if you don't have a diverse, equal opportunity workplace where people that work the hardest appreciate and deserve the opportunity to succeed. You will fail as a business. I don't need the government of California or whomever to tell me that I need a person that identifies as a fucking vacuum cleaner on my board. Well, two, it's so counter-capitalist where it's like, so I totally get a board, right? I understand, boards are actually good to a lot of different degrees, but what if I don't want one?
Mm-hmm.
What if I don't want one? What if I just want to run my company and be a fucking dude and be on my own and do my own thing?
Figure out what works for you.
Right.
It's pretty simple. But I think all of those requirements, they're pushing them out under the guise of it's equal rights and equal opportunities for everyone. But really, it's just causing more and more division.
Right.
Because now you have people feel like this person's only here because we were forced to hire them, or this person didn't get hired for this reason. And you see the same thing in law enforcement and the narrative overall about all of this racist stuff and the sexist stuff. Man, I was in law enforcement for 10 years. I never worked with a partner that I would classify as a racist person.
Right.
Like, I just don't see it. And I've talked about this on my podcast a lot. Like, I've never personally seen it. Like, you're out on patrol with your partner. Hey, see that car full of Mexicans? Let's go hem them up. Like, that conversation doesn't happen. It's never happened.
Right.
And I worked in Seattle and Los Angeles as a law enforcement officer. So those are kind of like pretty progressive cities.
Sure.
Maybe that's the case in other parts of the country, but it's the same thing in the military. I mean, did you guys ever work with anyone that was like, oh, I don't want a black guy on our team?
Guys were
get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's get the fuck out of the room.
Yeah,
that was like the fringy fucking weirdo in basic training when you're going through going, whoa, dog. Like, that guy's...
Dude,
that guy's a little crazy.
Like, that guy's a little bit fucking crazy. Yeah. Nobody hung out with that guy, by the way.
No.
He was a fucking weirdo.
Yep.
Like, all the normal guys are like, yeah, let's go fucking... When you went, you guys saw it, when you went to the bar, and it was so... we were talking about this, Matt and I were talking about this, where it's like, when you went to the bar for the first time after not really knowing the person because you only seen them in uniform.
Oh, yeah.
You remember how
when they wear their street
diverse
clothes?
it was?
Yeah.
Dude, it was crazy.
You got a dude dressed like a gangbanger. You got a cowboy with a belt buckle the
You always
size of
have
a
the
dinner
cowboy.
plate.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're hanging out.
Oh, we're hanging out.
Yeah, we're hanging out.
It was always that Scooby-Doo moment when you're like, oh, that's that
Mask
motherfucker. Okay, weird. Hey, but that dude's cool.
Yeah.
And then you'd go hang out on Friday, and you always know the mill guys too, like especially the younger mill guys, because they're guys that shouldn't be hanging out together. And then they get into an assimilated
people, and you're like, nah,
bunch of privates.
That's what it looks like.
Why do they all have shots together?
Those are a bunch of airborne privates on leave for the weekend.
Airborne privates or just privates in general. As you go out, you're like, what that? Okay, a bunch of fucking E3s, just E3s.
They got it.
And then it's like you get further indoctrinated, and you kind of get your kind of your social indoctrination, your tribalism. Everybody kind of gets fucking carved off. Then you have different sections. Even when you're in Ranger Battalion, I would imagine. There's
of course.
The dudes that were into whatever thing over here. What years were you in Ranger Battalion?
99 to 03.
Okay, yeah. So like back in the day. Right? Like, you probably were you into jiu-jitsu back then too?
No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's actually where I got introduced to jiu-jitsu. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's actually one of my really good buddies. He was there for around that same time. He got turned on to jiu-jitsu around that same time through Ranger Battalion. But the point of that fucking random rant, I don't know what it was, but the point of this
you find
was
your tribe even within your tribe.
You do,
like like there was car guys that would be out because our motor pool was open. Yeah. Like you could just go take your car into the motor pool on the weekends and turn wrenches. There's guys out there building engines.
I remember that.
Then there was guys reloading ammo in the barracks. There's a bunch of gun guys, and one of the squad rooms was fully turned into like an ammo reloading room.
Right.
And none of these are color or socioeconomic dependent. Like, I mean, man, we had guys that like to hunt, like to fish, like to shoot guns, like to climb. Like,
then you had guys that like to go to the bars and get blacked out drunk every night.
Yeah, then there's guys that get blacked out. Yep.
Yeah, you had those dudes, and it's interesting because you have to think about it. I was thinking about this the other day because we were having that conversation about, who was what, like whether they were Hispanic or black or white or whatever it was. And there was a conversation, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You had to think about it. And I was like, yeah, Lamont was black. And I was like, I because we'd hung out so much, you actually had to think about it and then go, oh yeah, I have to think of another layer to that. But you were like actively participating in like a counting program going, oh, this is my Mexican group of friends over here. And it's like, it's just like your fucking buddies.
Exactly. Like there are times that I've thrown out people's names and then I would have to finish eventually with, oh, he is X, right?
Yeah.
Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. Because I go by name and what fucking hobby we had together.
Right.
And
that's all it's based on. It's all based on
and
that.
The criteria of being a good dude.
Good Lord.
Doesn't fucking change no matter who you are.
It doesn't
matter. Can you shoot? Can you PT? And do you have my back? And can I trust you?
Yeah.
You know?
Were you fun to hang out with?
Yeah.
Were you funny? Were you funny? Like that was the other thing. It was like, can you shoot? Can you PT? Were you fucking fun to hang out with? And were you funny? Right. So
yeah,
it's like,
true. Because when you're sitting in a GP medium for 6 months,
you don't want to.
You want some funny fuckers
the dude
around.
That's a fucking weirdo that's fucking lamenting about everything. You're just like, dude, fuck off, man. Leave me alone. Like,
and you saying that it is the same in law enforcement. I mean, that should be heartening for people to hear. That should be uplifting for people to hear because, I don't know if you've read Madness of Crowds, like the fourth wave of all these progressive movements is detrimental to all of the like to feminism, to gay trans rights, to color blindness, to racial rights. The fourth movement is what they're calling all this going on right now. The people that put in a shit ton of legwork during the second and third movement that are still alive are telling these other people to fuck off because they're ruining everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we got a lot of it. Why are you making us out to look like crazy people now? Like there've been feminist writers that have been drummed off campus for not being progressive enough.
Right.
That literally were the ones that sat and made the sacrifices in their lives to go to schools by themselves or to fight in the courts and they're being drummed out of colleges because they're not progressive enough. And these men and women are just saying, you know what, fuck you. We put in the work. And it's being driven by the division coming from social and political elites trying to get a base of humans to fight against another base of humans so that they can maintain their quote electorate and stay in power.
It's divide and conquer.
That's what's going on.
It is. You're right. It's divide and conquer.
And it's bizarre how it's so obvious what flavor of the week it is. Because do you guys remember, this was probably a year and a half ago when the biggest national story was there's men that put dresses on and want to use women's bathrooms.
Yeah.
Everyone was freaking the fuck out. And then you had the left be like, well, if they identify as this, they should be able to. And then you had all the conservatives saying, I don't want my 4-year-old daughter in a bathroom with a man in a dress. And everyone was pissed off about it. How often is that happening? Is that something that needs to sweep the nation?
Precisely.
Once, probably every 45 days in America.
And everybody's fired up about it. And everybody chose a side.
340 million people going to the bathroom 3 times a day. And it happens in one bathroom
and everybody's
every 45
polarized
days.
about it.
Polarized as fuck.
That right-wing person is making the grand assumption that person is also going to touch
molest
their
your kid. Yeah.
Fucking relax. And then the person on the far left is making the assumption that they just identify totally harmless. Neither one of those statements are true.
Yeah.
Neither one of them.
The guy down the street who looks totally normal, wears a suit and tie, could be a kitty toucher too.
Yeah, exactly.
Back the train up.
He probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, statistically,
it's that guy.
He's the one.
He's the one. Yeah.
He's somebody's uncle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the fucking weird thing is when you look at this entire the division of the country, the gaslighting of each individual. And I look at these one-off circumstances where you're like, statistically, that's an anomaly just in human nature.
That's an N of one.
It's like so fucking random. And yet you're going to amplify this and make it look like, and that's both on the left and the right. Both parties both on the left and the right. They're like putting the fucking flame to it going, oh yeah. I've been trying to get more up to speed on the ATF and a lot of the 2A issues that are going on. So one of the big things is the ATF. You guys read this? The ATF has sent out a cease and desist to Q about their arm brace not being long enough. Have you been keeping this up?
No.
So some fucking low-level bureaucrat, shitbag ATF guy, which, oh, by the way, we'll be doing a story with those guys too, sent out a random ruling, just like the ATF is so good at doing, a random ruling that now all of a sudden they're not in compliance with their arm brace. And by the way, it's designed, built, and manufactured by the guys that have a direct relationship with the ATF and have for fucking years. But then there's just some piece of paper here, you're not compliant. They literally overnight made 4,000 plus people felons that had purchased them legal through FFLs. And they sent out, you're going to have to do a buyback, basically. Q's going to have to buy these back. So tell me how this works, right? Where some bureaucrat in Washington that has literally zero authority or should have zero authority to essentially make people felons
do unilateral
overnight.
decisions.
A unilateral decision that made 4,000 people legal law-abiding
with background
citizens
checks.
With background checks that purchased something legally, made them felons overnight. He did that without consulting anyone. Literally, it was just now this is what we're going to apply. And then there's no way for Q to respond to apply because they just said, yeah, you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to figure out where and how you're going to work within the rules that we haven't really set out, by the way. They're not clear as to what the guidelines are. So you can weigh in on the overall length of a rifle, but you can't weigh in on the exact specifications for what will meet the criteria for what's a arm brace versus a shoulder stock. So if it becomes an SBR, non-registered SBR, basically is what they're doing.
And where did the fixation on short barrel rifles start anyways? Because a longer barrel is a better combat gun anyways.
Any day of the week.
So why are they so fixated on that? Because you could conceal it?
I guess.
Like
you can conceal a pistol too, right?
Yeah,
it's like
it's
a
bizarre.
hammerless 357 is still basically a fucking semi-auto if you look at it. Yeah, the cylinder rotates around, and yeah, you can hold more fucking rounds in a magazine, but holy shit, dude, it's still a lot of fucking rounds. And I don't know if you've ever seen Jerry Micklick reload a fucking 6-shooter, but that motherfucker is scary as shit. So,
and something else you said buyback. I hate that term because they're starting to say, now they're calling it, Kamala Harris is calling it a mandatory buyback.
Yeah.
That's fucking churching up the word confiscation.
It's a confiscation.
It is a fucking confiscation.
You can't buy back anything that wasn't yours.
Exactly.
That doesn't work. You don't buy fuck all, for instance.
It's not like she's not made a career out of doing things she shouldn't do. But whatever, she's got a great record.
No, and I was hearing some of this stuff, so I went to Biden's website directly and read the quote, and it's fucking bananas, the stuff that they're saying about guns. Mandatory buyback of all, they're not even calling them assault rifles anymore. That's not scary enough. Weapons of war.
Oh, solid. Yeah,
because that probably causes just a little more fear.
Weapons
mandatory buyback. We're going to give you a choice. Mandatory buyback or national registration. Like,
it's not how this works.
No, it's not how it works. Yeah. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Dude, but here's my question to you and looking at the law enforcement community just in general. So what happens
if that happens?
Like, I think this is a really fucking, really, really scary conversation because
they're going to want the police officers to be their goon squad.
They tried that in New Jersey,
are they going to do that,
Didn't they try that in New Jersey?
Here again, every single police officer I know says there is no way I'm participating in that because that's a fucking death sentence.
It's fucking so goddamn dangerous.
Hey, I don't want to be doing this. I feel like I'm violating your rights, but I'm here to confiscate your weapons.
There's some states that would be scary.
Yeah,
scary.
Well, Lake Stevens, Washington, if you're listening, that would be scary to do that there.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of guys like me that aren't turning their shit in. So check this out. This is right off of the Biden-Harris. This is off of his website. It says, we want to ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Federal law prevents hunters from hunting migratory game birds with more than 3 rounds in their shotgun. That means federal law does more to protect ducks than your children. Like, what? And it says, this time bans will be designed based on the lessons we learned from the 1994 bans. We're working to pass legislation to use his executive authority to ban importation of weapons as well. And they go on and they talk about the different confiscations they call it the mandatory buyback or the national registration, and they're putting it out there. They're not even hiding it anymore. They're not even trying to church it up. We're coming for your guns. And
which I actually think this is a good thing. I really do.
Yeah, because that'll be the straw that breaks camel's back.
At least they put it out. And so people and the voters can
look it up.
There are more new gun owners in the United States in the past 12 months as there have been literally statistically annually. I think it's something like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever times in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sports.
I think, if anything, this is proven. The government cannot protect you in a time of duress and emergency.
No.
The government cannot protect you. So this is an argument as a society, which is, do you want to be...
won't.
won't.
That's
it
different.
will come out and say,
they won't.
For instance, in Houston, the police department came out in Houston and a few places, Detroit, Houston, these main metropolitan areas, and said, we will not be able to protect you during a time of COVID.
Sorry.
It is, you will have to protect yourself. So here's the expectation. That's the thing that I would love to challenge all these fucking progressives with that want to take this, which is if the government can't protect me or my family, which is what they keep telling us, and that's what they've told us for years, and this is why they want our fucking rifles, because every one of these rifles is going to go out and commit a fucking homicide or whatever the fuck it is. Okay, how do you expect me to protect my family against criminals that don't live by the letter of the law,
don't give a shit,
that will get a weapon wherever the fuck they find one, that will break into my house? And oh, by the way, in the police department that you want to defund, do you want to defund the police department? You want to make, drugs legal. You want to make the ability for people to live wherever the fuck they want to live. And now you want to take away things from law-abiding citizens that have gone through the proper procedures to buy them. Maybe you focus your energy on people that probably have been breaking the law. I'm just throwing that out there. But you're focusing your energy on taxpayers that have gone through the letter of the law, that don't break the law. And now you're going after a tax-paying base of, 50 plus million people own more than one firearm in the United States. 40 plus million people in the United States consider themselves firearm enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going after a bunch of taxpayers that, oh, by the way, don't break the law. Statistically, it's an anomaly for a person with a concealed carry permit to actually break the law outside of traffic violations, which is speeding and a few of these other things.
They don't make with a weapon.
They do not commit violent crimes.
Well, it's the same thing with AR-15s.
Right.
How many people are committing homicides with AR-15s? Statistically, it's almost insignificant. Like, sure, you have a mass shooting here or there that all the media attention goes to that. It's shitty pistols in the hood that people are shooting each other with.
Right.
It's gang violence. It's gang warfare. That's the gun violence in America. Nobody wants to fucking talk about that.
Yeah, you're right. That's the majority of the gun violence.
They want, and another big piece of that pie is suicide.
Right.
They class that in.
Massive.
Huge.
Well, and mass shootings are 2 or more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so, like on that website, it said, we're going to get weapons of war off the streets. You don't have sophisticated AR-15s on the streets. No. I'm sure at some places you may come across that, but it's the exception. It's not the rule. And the other thing on your point of you should be allowed to protect your family because the law enforcement officers may not be able to respond. I always want to ask these political elites, like I would love to be at like a town hall meeting with Joe Biden and just raise my hand and be like, what kind of weapon systems is your security detail running? Right. I would love to know. And it's it's a rhetorical question because I worked protection detail for Department of Justice and we were allocated to protect Supreme Court justices. So I know exactly what those teams are outfitted with. Everybody has a Glock 19 and an AR-15.
Yep.
So those weapon systems are safe and proficient enough to protect you and your family. But you just own a coffee company. What do you need it for?
Yeah. What do I need it for?
Right? Or that guy over there, he's an electrician. What does he need it for?
What they're doing is they're creating a class system.
Exactly.
By doing this, they're saying there is a division between
you
and me. We're way more important than you are.
Look, you peasant.
Yes, we're the peasant system. We're the class below them. Laws don't apply to them. For instance, if any one of us in the military would have done what Hillary Clinton did with her emails and violation of ultimately her security clearance, like any one of us probably would have been thrown in jail. We would have been in Leavenworth if we would have been in the military.
How many times did you have a piece of TS equipment that you were terrified to move out of the fucking room it was in?
Move out.
The room. When you knew it was allowed in the whole building. You're terrified to move it.
Put a server in your fucking house and then delete and dumpster fire thousands of fucking emails and then organize your entire staff to break and dismantle their phones. So I think that for me is when I see all of these things happen in the United States and the gaslighting that needs to be done is by the community, we have to hold these people more accountable, right?
Yeah.
Why are we as a community, everyone together saying, we cannot let the stupid people run our lives? And the politicians themselves, I think they are the they're the fucking dum-dums, man. Like,
No, they
Beto
are, for
O'Rourke,
sure.
for instance, in Texas, got barely graduated from college. He got fucking rolled up on trespassing and fucking DUIs and all this other stuff. He's a idiot. He is a first-rate moron. And people are like, yeah, I want that moron to represent me. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, why are you why are we as a society accepting the village idiots,
but we're not even
to move out to fucking Washington to represent us? And then they're like, I want you to pass laws that will ultimately affect me. That's what I want you to do.
It's not even that we're accepting. It's that there is an inference that there are only specific choices. You know,
Right.
For instance, all of you that voted, because, you know, everybody's fucking posting their I voted fucking stickers all over the goddamn social media.
Right.
Was it a surprise, or were you expecting only 2 choices on the goddamn ballot for the presidential election?
Right.
Was it a surprise that there was like, what, 5, 6?
Yeah. 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It was a surprise.
yeah, and for almost everybody, I'm sure. And the only reason it's a damn surprise is because the third party hurt the left and right, Republican, Democrat parties a couple decades ago.
Yeah.
And then they forced them out
Yeah.
by saying, oh, well, you need a specific percentage of the
Right.
popular vote by polling to then be allowed in a debate. And the way that I see that is that's segregation. It's, yeah. You can come to school here, but you're going to have your classes in the gymnasium where we can't see you.
Right.
Fuck you. Like, that's a real easy way to show a group of people in a country you don't matter. And then everybody says, hey, you know what? Vote third party. That's the way to throw your vote out.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
That's literally how the system changes.
Yep.
By showing them this amount of people want change.
I think that's a good point. I was thinking while you were talking, I was like, what these motherfuckers are, they're a cartel.
Yeah.
Like that's like they are trying to make us
Both sides.
afraid. So when you look at the DNC and the RNC both, they just need to be lumped in to
One group.
They are one group.
Damn
They're a
right.
political cartel
You think they
that
don't put parties
ultimately
together?
operates in order to breed fear and
Yep.
control into the American population.
Yeah.
That's
And
what they
And
are.
at what point are people just going to have enough?
It's happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm
For
saying.
instance, in Texas, Jorgensen was
Right.
already polled at over 3% of the vote.
Right.
That's a lot.
Uh-huh.
It's a
Do
lot.
people understand how much that is? Because I don't think people do. That's a big deal. And that's not getting reported on. And it's not getting reported on because more people hear that are told, your third party vote's trash. They would do it
Yeah.
if they had heard that that's what's going on. She's not going to win, right? But they get a seat at the table, an actual seat at the table.
Right.
We actually get a different choice.
Well, when does it? Like, I think when people say that it's enough is, well, one, I think it's through information, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
they have to be educated, one, on their constitution, in just quite literally what is America all about? What does it mean to be a capitalist? What does it mean to say, hey, it's a capitalist constitutional republic?
Yeah.
You know, why does this work? Why do the checks and balances work? You have Congress people, representatives that don't even understand the branches of government.
Yeah.
They don't understand what the legislative fucking arm of the government is supposed to do.
Well,
They don't. They continue to lie to the American public. Kamala Harris the other day said something. She gave Pence an education, historical education during the debate, and she said Abraham Lincoln. You know, you might have heard of him. You know, and in that voice, you might have heard of a guy called Abraham Lincoln, which is called
Condescending
womansplaining,
bitch,
right?
dude.
Womansplaining. And he's like, okay, yeah, of course I've heard of Abraham Lincoln, right?
He's on the $5 bill.
Yeah. And she's like, he waited for the next election to appoint a Supreme Court judge. And then they did a fact check on it. And they're like, completely incorrect.
Yeah.
Like, they completely made up.
Did not happen.
She had one thing straight there.
He was the president.
He was the president.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. So I'm sitting here going, when are there going to be consequences for the dum-dums in Washington when they go out and they misrepresent facts and they know even if they don't know, if they're caught in misrepresenting facts or lying
It's a lie.
spinning even, they get fucking fired.
That was
You're
more. That was just more flaming the fan of division.
Right.
Trump shouldn't be allowed to elect or appoint a Supreme Court justice, and that became like a national story. He's the president. That's how it's worked. That's how it's always worked.
The Republicans have the Senate, and we have the White House,
and then the left's narrative is he needs to wait. He needs to appreciate the people's vote.
Because they keep saying...
Would they ever... would the Democrats have done that?
No.
Get the fuck
They keep
out
saying
of here,
that,
dude.
well, we waited. And it's like, no, you didn't. If you didn't have the House, you didn't have the Senate, and you didn't have the White House. You had the White House.
Uh-huh.
So Obama was trying to appoint a judge. And the Senate was like, fuck off.
Yeah.
That's how the game works, dummies.
And talk about spin. I mean... she's now a Supreme Court justice.
Thank fucking God.
Was labeled by Scalia as what? One of his most brilliant students?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to pick a female that was then labeled as a brilliant student before getting groomed for this. Almost couldn't have been a better choice on that side of the court, because that's what's going to happen. And they lose their minds.
Well, that's the thing.
Everybody loses their minds.
They're so hypocritical across the board. And I think finally people are catching on just how dumb this entire system is and how dumb these representatives are. Because they're so hypocritical across the board, which is we have to break the glass ceiling. We have to encourage, women in positions of power, except for conservative women.
Yeah.
Sorry. Except for conservative women. And it's the same thing across the board, except for conservatives. What we mean is if they fit our fucking political
same thing with
agenda,
conservative gays, except
Exactly.
for conservative gays.
Or conservative black men.
Yeah, exactly.
Nope. No, you don't count.
You don't count because you don't fit our agenda.
Sorry. Actually, no, not a sorry. It's you should follow the agenda. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, if you don't follow the agenda and walk lockstep, this is an Orwellian fucking, this is an Orwellian nightmare that we're living in, where we're just like, what the fuck is going on,
you and I have talked about this. The division and the insanity and the lockstep attitude is crazy left and right. When people say, when you and I have talked about and said, oh yeah, no, we've had people ask our opinions on X, Y, and Z, call it, say, drug reform or weapons, right? Like, no, I think everybody should be able to own a firearm if they can legally own a firearm, and they go through all the checks. Like, oh, you just like a total crazy right-wing Trump supporter. Like, no, I don't. That doesn't mean I have to do that. Like, that's not how the system works.
Yeah,
I don't have to be lockstep on one party or lockstep on the other. Like, I'm not your enemy. We're all citizens of the same country. I have the same passport you do.
But see, the thing is, the narrative is creating division and then creating that division through fear.
Creates control.
Right.
And you see all the stuff they're trying to do to make people afraid. COVID is being used to make people afraid. Like all this firearm stuff, everything that they push. And as soon as someone tries to present, what's the opposite of fear is being prepared.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before the podcast started. Like, I become buddies with Mike Glover over the last couple months.
Love that guy.
I went down to Prescott and did his podcast. Yeah. That's why I got this hat. Shout out Fieldcraft Survival.
Yeah.
Because his whole movement is preparedness. What that does is it takes away from fear. If you're prepared, we like military 101. Like, we did a lot of scary shit, but because we were prepared and we were trained, when you were boots on the ground kicking doors, it didn't feel scary. Fear wasn't an emotion that you really felt because we prepared ourselves. Mike Glover's whole platform is trying to help people become prepared. And they shut his ass down for it. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
You know?
That he's raising a militia. And
he's not doing any of that stuff.
He's not doing any of that.
He's teaching people to be competent and prepared, and they fucking shut all of his stuff down. So it's like,
it's an oligarchy.
Yeah. You're going up against this system.
You're going up
as soon as they see somebody
system.
He's catching some steam. He's building a platform. He's creating a following. People are seeing like, okay, this is what I need to do to be prepared. Like, get rid of that guy, whatever we got to do. Because I was listening to him on Cleared Hot on my drive down here.
Right.
And he's like, there's protocols for all of these major media platforms when you've either violated something or you've said something that's outside of your user agreement. They contact you or they suspend you. Right. None of that shit happened to him. He said he went to log in and American Contingency no longer existed. Yeah.
Well, and that's happening time and time again because the political elite, I think I think there's that class system, right? It doesn't matter. We can classify it as the ultra wealthy and powerful because I don't think anybody is immune to this. I also think when we look at large corporate interests, and then ultimately I look at this class system as you have large corporate interests that ultimately control both the DNC and the RNC. It doesn't matter, right? And then the DNC and the RNC, they're in charge of essentially the news outlets. So they create the talking points, and they gaslight everybody, and then they create the fucking divisions within each one of the parties. So as we look at it, it's like, okay, so who's in charge of what? Well, you have to really look at who has the most to lose. Really, like why or who's in charge of what? We have to look at who has the most to lose. And so when we look at the people, power to the people, when we look at the general population, the middle class America, we pay the bills.
Yep.
We pay the bills. It's not the top 1%. They don't pay the most in taxes. Actually, the middle class American, they burden the majority of the tax burden in the United States. That's what they do. It's not the lower percentage. It's not the highest percentage. It's right there. It's cut right down the middle of the swath of the country. The transference of wealth and power it continues to be, we're the beast of burden of the United States. Middle class America is the beast of burden. That's what people have to realize. So you have one side, what do they want? They want to be able to ultimately control that because they want to move power or wealth from that taxpayer into their pocket. That's what they want. And both sides, power or wealth to this side. So when you look at it, you're like, well, yeah, middle America in middle class Americans, they're being squeezed to death by two sides, both spectrum of the entire tax basis. But the majority of the control comes from the wealthiest of America. So am I a corporate class, warrior? No, not at all, man. I'm saying just the way the system works, that's the way it works. Wall Street is contributing 10, 15, 20, 30 times out contributing to the Biden campaign more than the average donor in the Trump campaign. So when people say, well, Biden's for the working class. No, he's not, dummies. He's not for the fucking working class. Like, wake up. He's not trying to go out and lobby and make fucking administrative changes for the working class. He wants all of these politicians, and that's why I really think Trump took it from both sides. I really do. I think the RNC hated him.
They did.
The DNC hated him. Both sides hated him. That's
they
why
all still hate him.
That's why he had 3.5 years of this fiction. That's why they thought that they could run these fake investigations through the fucking FBI. Fake impeachments, fake investigations, fake, right? And if anyone, we should be, at least regardless of what people think of Trump. Do I like all of his policies? No. Do I like his fucking tweeting behavior? No. Do I like this first debate? No. Like there's like no all the way
was
around.
Kind of
but you know what I do like? And
everybody hates him.
He doesn't want endless war. 47 years of this corporate elitist fucktard that has gotten into decades of war.
Trump's brought home more troops than any president in living memory.
We have new peace agreements in the Middle East. He doesn't want fucking endless war. He's taken fucking China to task. Look at what he's done and go, how are we as a country? We want to re-elect and go back to people that want to transfer wealth from the taxpayer into corporate America to get us into these fucking wars that never end, by the way. There's no goals. There's no objectives. There's no clear winning strategy. There's nothing. And it's just hollow, empty fucking words of just us being bilked year after year of just fucking increased taxes for what? It's just moving it from here over to the people that build fucking tanks and build fucking planes. And then we're going to war in the country of fucking Afghanistan, where ultimately the Taliban can't take away our right to exist.
Yeah.
There's no there's no way that we have jeopardized our sovereignty, and we're paying.
They sure took away your right to have a good experience in the airport.
They sure fucking did, didn't they? Right? So you're allowing people.
Now your dick's getting grabbed and you're getting x-rayed every time.
The country has allowed this to happen, right? The taxpayers have continued to allow this to happen.
Which is understandable to a point with some of the fear. Like, I get it. I get it.
Trillions
and we all were part of it.
Our dollars, the middle class,
gone.
Trillions of our dollars have been moved out of our pockets. Our friends, our fucking peers, portions of our fucking country, gone, evaporated through death and through the destruction of their lives. Hundreds of thousands of fucking Afghanis and Iraqis fucking gone. And for countries that have zero ability to take away our sovereignty, they can't, the Taliban couldn't mount a fucking, what are they going to mount? A horse crossing from the fucking ocean to come and invade America?
Or Saddam, who is literally stabilizing a country?
It's the largest perpetration of fraud.
You know what's interesting about that is, like, remember when we were in our 20s, like, you couldn't get enough of war.
No.
It's like, fucking deploy me.
Yeah.
Yes, you know? And then as a 40-year-old man looking back on it and then seeing how many veterans are fucked up from it, how many I've had, I mean, everybody at this table I'm sure has lost multiple friends to suicide. And then what they're doing for the veterans on the back end. And almost every veteran I know now looks back on it and is like, was that worth it?
Right.
You know? Like, that's a whole nother fucking topic, but it's all intertwined, you know?
It is all intertwined. I think as vets, as a bunch of guys, I think that's where the next generation of leadership, like deciding how the fuck they're going to be proactive in their communities.
There's a reason TR, like Teddy Roosevelt, was not hawkish. He went to war and he lost a son in war, in combat. He's the only sitting president that lost a son in combat. That dude did not want this kind of shit to go on.
Yeah, he's going to take a hard look at it before he sends other people's sons.
Look, I've literally been shot at.
Right.
This is bad. Let's not do this. Right. So we have somebody now in office that has not participated in that at all.
No.
Right. And people bitch and moan about draft dodging. And you know what? Be that as it may, he has brought home more troops than has happened in living memory.
When he hasn't started a new one.
No. He's stopping them.
He hasn't started a new bullshit.
I was in Afghanistan when the drawdown happened in Iraq.
Right.
Dude, do you remember when Iran shot the missiles at Al Assad Air Base?
Yeah.
Everybody was just chomping at the bit. Let's go. Let's go. We need revenge. We need revenge. And I was like, fuck, man, I hope he doesn't buckle to this, because they shot him. I mean, they fucking purposely didn't fucking kill any Americans. Sure. You know what I mean?
If they want to, like, the Iranians are competent at killing Americans. They know where the fuck we are.
I don't know, man. Yeah, you can look Al Assad Air Base up on Google Earth and see where the fucking hangars are at. But he just took it in stride and said, you know what, and took the high road and didn't do anything. And, like, I don't know, man. Like 10 years ago, I'd have been like, kill them all, you know. But now, having looking at it through a different lens, to use Andy Stump's verbiage, I think that was the high road, you know?
I think it is.
But I had people ask me, you know, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think he's going to go? And I'm like, you know, based on the track record, I think they're going to, if something else happens, they'll stop it from continuing. But I don't think we're going to be making any aggressive moves.
Yeah.
Not with the way that this administration's been doing
I don't
stuff.
think we have to. That's the thing, is like, it's Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, why?
Like, walk softly, carry a big stick.
That's what we've been doing.
And then
the big stick right now is economic.
Well, and everybody too has seen, hey, United States goes to war. Everybody in the world's like, holy fuck, let's not piss off the United States. Those fucking dudes are crazy. They're going to invade our country. They're going to, like, Halliburton's going to be like, oh shit, let's get a couple more $1 billion on our balance sheet, right? Like, they're going to lobby some fucking crazy dumbass politician. They're going to be like, fucking hey, let's go. Like,
they've spent 110 of the last 130 years in war. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they got it, right? Russia has the fucking, like, grand economy of the size of fucking New York. Like, stop talking about Russia. Like, it's so fucking stupid, and it's a dumbass goddamn conversation. Beat them in the field of fucking intelligence and fucking economy. You can fucking beat the dog shit out of them. You don't need to be like, well, the Russians are killing fucking Americans in Afghanistan. Oh, you think? So were we. You guys know that we were doing that too, right, dummies? That's the way it works. It's called a proxy war. But and not being involved in fucking proxy wars is the first step in not killing fucking Russians or having the Russians kill us. Like, it's pretty fucking easy, man. And I'm like, but if we were fucking really jumping like both feet in to a large scale, like international intelligence, right? Like using our special operations, using our intelligence fucking forces the way they should be used and not fucking deploying, MRAPs and fucking tanks and all this other bullshit, we're much scarier because the Chinese and the Russians would know, like, holy fuck, dude, they have eyes, they have ears everywhere. If we fuck up, we're going to be under economic sanctions that will destroy our economy. Our people will starve. They're going to revolt and we're going to be out of fucking jobs. More than likely, we're going to go the way of the Bolshevik Revolution where the fucking czars were executed in their fucking house. That's where power really exists. Not fucking like, oh, they know, the Russians know we can't invade their fucking country. We don't have the capacity to do it because we're playing around in these bullshit countries that mean nothing strategically when you look at them. Like, we can have the same thing by going, hey, we're going to pay a couple $1 billion a year. We want an airfield in your fucking country. And oh yeah, we want a fucking pipeline. And oh, by the way, if you fuck around, you're going to have a bunch of fucking SF guys riding on horses and fucking the god is going to rain fucking burning metal down on your heads. Fuck around, right? Greg, was that it?
That was good, man.
We go off a rail?
All
right. So you got your podcast, right?
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Endless Endeavor. We got 20 episodes out.
Nice.
And that was, fuck, dude. I never thought I'd have a podcast. It wasn't like something that I really even thought about.
Right.
And then Andy invited me on his 6 months ago or whatever it's been now. I got a lot of people hitting me up.
Yeah.
Dude, you should do your own. You should do your own.
Yep.
So I was like, fuck it. Let's give it a try.
Exactly.
And it's actually doing really well. So it's pretty cool.
So what are the first 20 episodes? Like, give us, are you interviewing people?
There's a couple episodes. It's just me. But I didn't really want to pigeonhole myself. Like, oh, it's military history or it's jujitsu. It's just a little bit of everything.
Right.
It's some of it's about like health and wellness, mental health. I've had a couple doctors on talking about the COVID thing, jujitsu stuff, just kind of all over the place. But yeah, people are digging it. So
yeah, because you had nose surgery or some shit a long time ago. What did they have to do? What was that?
I just couldn't breathe through my nose for
Was it from getting punched in the face? Really?
So it had been so long, I wasn't sure if I'd always been like that or if it was from fighting. And I went and got a CAT scan and it had a bunch of fractures in it.
Really?
And so, yeah, they cut.
That was a gnarly fucking
Have you seen this picture? Yeah, I'll show you. So, and thank God I didn't see this picture before the surgery.
It's looking gnarly.
But they had to basically cut my entire nose off.
Because I'm looking at your nose, I'm like, how the fuck did they do that? Because it doesn't, it looks fucking...
Just a little scar right on the bottom.
Wow.
But yeah, for the first time in a long time, I can finally breathe out of it.
What?
Isn't that gnarly?
I know, right?
My ranger buddies were sending me DMs like, take that down, you're turning me on.
Yeah.
I can't unsee that.
But yeah, no, it's weird how things work out, man, because I got out of law enforcement and then the George Floyd thing happened.
Right.
And everybody hates cops, especially in Seattle. All of my coworkers were like, man, I wish I could get out of this. And then my gym's blowing up now. We're doing really well. We remained open against the governor's edicts.
Solid.
Obviously we shut down for a month because everyone was unsure of what this was.
Absolutely.
And then I got to a point where I said, you know what? People are consenting adults that can think for themselves. If you want to train jiu-jitsu and CrossFit, let's go.
Right.
And it's been doing awesome. So it's interesting.
Where's it at?
Lake Stevens, Washington.
What's it called?
Electric Jiu-Jitsu and CrossFit Lake Stevens. But it's interesting how you get rewarded for a little bit of courage, It's because all the other gyms are shut down. So everybody's coming to us. It's been really awesome.
And you got a wife, kids?
Yeah, I got a wife, 3 daughters.
What's your wife do?
Stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, she's a stay-at-home school teacher.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, I know that.
Seems to be the play.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But we got my youngest daughter in private school yesterday, finally.
Oh,
Because,
really?
dude, in Seattle area, when they announced that schools were shut down, it was like a fucking mad dash to get your kids into private school.
Right.
And they filled up.
So the private schools are still taking kids.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So the private school that it was interesting, man. The morning that we heard schools weren't opening up, we started trying to like research it and find out what schools were good. And we found one we liked. We called them and they said, yeah, we have openings for all 3 of your daughters. By the time we drove there that afternoon, they were all gone.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude, it filled up
Whoa.
fast. And so they had an opening come up for whatever reason. My youngest got in and they said, once you get one family member in, now you're on the short list if they have
Right.
any other openings. So we'll see. But yeah, that's been tough. I mean, kids aren't supposed to learn by staring at a laptop.
No.
They got enough screen time with their bullshit, you know?
Yeah. It's a constant conversation for me and my wife. Like, you know, how do we provide education? Because we're just homeschooling now. We just we looked at the local curriculum, and it's like my daughter's doing fucking second and third grade math. She's done with her first grade math curriculum. It's not even December, and she's done with her first grade math curriculum. And it's like there's so many lost hours. And now when we look at it,
Like, what was going on
no, there's so many lost hours, man. Like so many, like
with
for
them?
us,
Yeah.
like I'm not telling anybody what they should or shouldn't be doing because it works for everybody differently. But it's like we've been fortunate. My wife gets to stay home with the girls, and my youngest is not in preschool because there isn't really preschool.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's
How
nothing
old
you
are your
can do
daughters
about
again?
it. 3 and 6.
Okay.
So first grade and preschool. But it's been better for us because what it taught us was, we don't actually need to have our first grader actually in school 6 hours a day or whatever
Yeah.
it is. We don't need it.
I mean,
And-
especially like your daughters are, you know, they float around here. Like they're
Socialization.
socialized. Like they're not,
they're super
like you're not
socialized.
keeping them in a closet at home where, all right, you get to learn and then go to sleep. Like
Well, and that's what I've always said
They're-
about school. Like that is a big, important part.
it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Socialization and learning because everybody knows some homeschool kids that like,
But you're able to accomplish that
Weirdos,
outside
right?
of just school.
exactly. No, if you get them in, like you said, have them around here, have them
Yeah.
get them involved in some type of sports curriculum.
Exactly.
Like there's ways around that, you know?
Like what we're doing this year is ski hills are right up the road. So the girls are going to be on the ski hill like 2-3 times a week.
That's awesome.
And, instead of, going to school for 6 hours a day, they're going to be in school for, an hour or
long it
2
takes.
hours and have the same amount of time. Then they're going to have more time. A season pass is really not that expensive around here.
No.
Multi fucking hill season pass. They'll be on the ski hill. We'll get way more time with the kids. We've gotten way more time. Plus, we can travel now. So I can take the girls with me when I go to Texas.
Yeah, that's huge.
And or one, so we freeze up our schedule. I'm just really, for me, I want to focus on what this thing has done is it's shown me one, it's something I've always known, right? It's like the government can't protect you.
Yeah.
Right. And there should be zero expectation as it can. There can be some expectation there. It's like, hey, my taxpayers are going into, a few things like, I want good roads. I want fucking, little expectation,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I want good roads. I want to be able to make sure that, the people that are out there are driving roughly the same speed limit and they're not fucking inebriated. But outside of that, man, like I have zero expectation for my tax dollars and what they're going to be used for. And I don't really even want to be a participant with the government structure of things because they're dum-dums.
Yeah.
Like they're just a bunch of dum-dums running things.
No, like I've said about this COVID thing, both with my business and with the kids, like there's actually parts of it that are blessings in disguise because it kind of encouraged you to take that step to be more independent of the government.
And
You
learn
know?
to be
Yeah.
more prepared.
Yeah.
Learn to be
and
more
We've
prepared.
talked about this since
Yeah.
the spring, since the first couple
We-
podcasts we did for
I
free range.
I got
It's
solar panels on the
go
house. I've
be
got a
prepared.
fucking Jenny on there. We
garden.
Yeah.
like we got, so for us, I'm like, this is great, man. Like honestly, Do I think that it's been great for a lot of people?
No.
No, absolutely not. I'm just saying it from my family, for my business, for what I think is important in prioritization of things. It's taught me a lot. It's pulled the fucking curtain back.
For sure.
And it said, I don't want the dum-dums to actually be part of my family life or my fucking business life. We create our ecosystem here at the company, right?
Oh.
We get to select who we fucking work with. It's no longer the military, you know? It's like, oh, these are the guys you're going to work with. No, man, like I get to decide that ecosystem. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, fuck, man, I'm 40. I get a great opportunity. I can spend more time with my kids. We can do more traveling. We can become more, you know, we can become more involved in nature too, which is a big fucking thing, you know, hunting and fishing and being outside. I don't have to worry about some dumb teacher that has a political agenda feeding my fucking daughters full of garbage.
Well, and it's happening.
Yeah, it is.
So my 11-year-old, and I've told this story on my show a couple times, but I walk in her room and there was a LGBTQX flag hanging up.
Right. What is an X?
I don't know.
What's the X?
I don't, XY, whatever.
Right.
C3PO.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Sure, it wasn't an eye chart.
And I was like, so tell me about this. Oh, well, everyone at school says this is like a good thing.
Right.
Like, why is that a good thing? Well, because this girl realized that she's a lesbian, and then this girl realized. I said, you guys are 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're 10.
I said, let me explain something to you. When you develop your sexuality, because I asked her, I said, okay, well, are you a lesbian? She's like, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I said, well, let me just impart a little wisdom on you.
Right.
When you reach an age where you develop your sexuality, you're going to know what you are.
Period.
Yeah.
You don't need to have somebody at school tell you this or tell you that, you know? And we started talking about it. And all the kids think that their history teacher's a homophobe because he's not willing to recognize gender neutral pronouns. He's like, I'm just going to call these kids him or hers.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude, this is, you hear about this stuff. And now my 11-year-old's bringing it home and is like, yeah, private school is sounding better.
The muddy slope.
What happened? Like what happened to, and I've talked about it on the podcast a lot, but it's like, what happened to these educators where they became so consumed with genitalia? That's the thing that should be super concerned.
It's
It's weird.
Yeah.
Like you're super concerned with fucking
the sexual preference
of a minor and their genitalia.
Yeah.
That's more concerning to me for like this elementary and junior high for teachers to be like, what is your sexual orientation? It's like, fuck off. Teach math, motherfucker.
But then the flip side of that is the one teacher that says, hey, I'm not getting involved in all this stuff. I'm not recognizing that stuff. I'm here to teach you history. All the kids are turning against him. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like, hey, I'm here. But that's where this participation trophy fucking generation of idiots and all these academics that went to school, like that's the big, I think we hit on it. That's the big one, which is why are all these educators so fucking fixated on the sexual orientation of minors and their genitalia?
Yeah.
Like that's the real question we should all be asking as parents, going, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like you guys need to like you're super concerned with the wrong shit. Teach math, motherfucker.
It all just loops to the St. George and retirement issue, you know, which
the
is
what?
St. George and retirement. You ever heard this? So St. George kills the dragon.
Right.
From a fable, right? Then he's retired, so he needs to find more dragons to kill.
Right.
That's what's going on in academia, right? It's like they killed all the dragons. And I think he talks about that in Madness of Crowds. Like all the dragons are dead.
Right.
You know, there's still some like fire that we need to put out, but the dragons are dead.
Dragons are dead.
So they're resurrecting these dragons. They're making these, you know, big dragon burning man sculptures. And they're like, look, there it is. Go get it. That's what they're doing. That's what's going on. They're in retirement. They're trying to find some other battle to fight.
Yeah.
You know, and it's scary because they're politicizing and they're polarizing kids that they don't know. Like
no, exactly.
It's a 6-year-old that, like I was talking with Erin Blevins about this. She's like, you know, like her daughter, like, we are more subconsciously racist than the generation that, we're giving birth to, like than your daughters, right? Just based on what we grew up with.
Yeah.
Our parents more than us, and further back and back and back. They're not coming out the womb like, hey, look, I hate that person because they're X.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on. But guess what? In school, they're getting taught that is what's going on. So now they're confused, angry at what? Why are you making a 9-year-old angry?
Yeah.
They just need to be happy and like go outside and play games.
Yeah.
Like let them play with Lincoln Logs or whatever the hell. Like I don't like. Why are they angry about race relations? It's a 9-year-old.
So true. Yeah, it's like
it's a 9-year-old.
Dude, it's a 9-year-old. Like
relax.
I can't even imagine.
Let him be 9.
Well, yeah, when I was
12
when I was in
whatever.
elementary school, like if some teacher was talking to me about like being, not being prejudiced towards people, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I was figuring out.
Dude, that's my buddy, man. What are you talking about?
Like I was figuring out the correct amount of baseball cards to make a bicycle sound like a motorcycle.
Seriously.
Like that's about as far as my brain is going. And now kids are coming home like, is it right to think Chinese?
I think
whatever?
I'm a lesbian. What?
What's
fucking
happening?
10. Like,
Straight
dude,
up,
when I was 10, I was still playing with G.I. Joes, man. Like I was trying to repel off fucking houseplants in my house with like string and shit.
Precisely.
I wasn't talking about whether or not I was like wanting to.
Is that a healthy thing for these, St. George's out there to be doing to people? Like
it's an unnecessary thing.
It's completely unnecessary, and they're garnering a lot of support for it and they're being paid by taxpayers.
Yeah, they're being paid by us. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to be a participant. I don't want to be a participant in this stuff.
You should be able to pull that money.
Hey, I'm all done. I'm all good, right? I'm all good. I don't want some and I know these people, right? And so do we. Like, we know these people. And this is my theory too, which
my brother's a teacher.
Like, you went to school for 6 years and you got a bullshit degree that means nothing. I'm sorry. Maybe you should have went to trade school, I mean, and you make $20-some thousand a year, and you should be commended in that, in the sense of like, you went to go teach, you knew what was going to go on, man. Like, and you don't have to be, and I'm not beating up educators. I'm beating up a section of our educators because you're socialists. Like, fuck off with your socialism. Stop feeding our fucking children full of your political ideology and having this counter narrative against the country's bad. Everybody's bad.
Unless you're teaching political science, get out of it.
Teach math.
Teach math.
Teach math. Like, and oh, by the way, guess what? If the dum-dums, if you couldn't, if you can't find any teachers that, when I say this, it's like the dum-dums are out there teaching our kids.
Oh.
They're the ones that are like, I'm going to go make $20,000 a year and go to work, working 9 months out of the year. Most of these guys aren't altruists, by the way. They're not saying, okay, we're going to be anointed with sainthood. They're just regular people that are a little bit fucking lazy, that were the people that took 7 or 8 years in college and were smoking dope, had no other fucking options, and decided like, this is what I'm going to do. Because nobody's going to go, I'm going to spend $150,000. You don't even have to be good at math to understand this equation. I'm going to spend $150,000 going to get a degree where I'm going to get out and make $20,000 a year. You don't even have to be good at math to fucking figure that one out, right? And so when you look at these guys,
I dropped out of art school and I figured it out.
Yeah. I was like, when I went to school, man, like I went to a state university, and I was like, I penciled that shit out, and I wasn't a brilliant guy whatsoever, but I penciled it out. I was like, holy fuck, I'm going to have to join the army. Like, this is super expensive. This is expensive. Yeah. And guess what? In fucking 3 years or however long it took, I was also, in the military, fucking saving, putting money away. In 3.5, 4 years, I paid back my student loans. Maybe had a few others that were straggling out here.
It happens.
But political science wasn't going to get me a fucking job doing anything, by the way. Fuck all. You know what was going to get me a job doing? Like nothing. Like quite literally. If you could put it on a resume to go get a fucking job at a bartender, and that's about, I don't even know if I could have got that job.
Unless you're going to be a teacher of political science.
But even then, a bachelor's degree won't get it done. So then you have
need
to
a master's.
You have to get a master's, or you have to get a PhD, right? Or
well, you really need both.
And it's
Now.
like, and now you're saddled with $150,000, $200,000 in college.
You're 28 years old.
You're 28 years old. You got a PhD in nothing.
You've been in academia your
and now
entire
you're
adult
bitter,
life.
and you're like, of course socialism makes sense, because you're like, fuck.
I wish this
all
was
those
free.
all those
This
smart
should have
guys,
been free.
all the smart guys who went to become chemical engineers are making $150,000 a year, in 3 or 4 fucking years. I'm got this
or the guy,
bullshit degree that pays me nothing.
Or the guy you're talking shit about that fixes your electric comes by and he's making 6 figures because he went to a trade school.
Or the welders.
The welders.
Those are the guys now. That's where the money's at.
Well,
dude,
you're exactly right.
Can you weld titanium? If you're out there, you have a unicorn. You are a unicorn.
But that's when we like that. That is a really important point, which is that is a fiction.
Yeah.
Like that is a fiction that has been perpetrated on the American youth, saying if you get a 4-year bachelor's degree, you are worth something to the workplace.
You deserve something from the workplace.
It's not true, by the way, just so everybody understands. Yeah. When I've interviewed a lot of people for this company, I look at a lot of interviews. My HR department looks at a fucking ton of resumes. I don't give a shit if a person has a 4-year degree. I don't care.
And how many people here are working here and doing fantastic and don't have any collegiate experience?
I can't even tell you because it's not a prerequisite to even what we
It doesn't matter.
Do.
And
the pendulum swung so far to pushing that narrative that you need that.
Exactly.
That now, I mean, I had a guy come out to bid addition on my house.
Right.
And he was like 55 years old or something. And he goes, I can't get young help anymore.
Right.
No one wants to be a builder. He's like, when my generation of builders retires, good luck. And the same thing with electricians and welders. It's like, nobody wants to do that anymore. They're above that. I'm going to go to school and get my political science degree, like you said.
And do nothing. And wait tables. That's what you're going to do.
I'm sure I'll take flack, but there's a ton of people that are about to be evicted. There's a lot of people that have been out of work, but you know what I see in every town I've gone to? Home Depot and every grocery store has a sign out fucking front that says, we are hiring.
We are hiring. And
look, I'm not too good to bag groceries. God, I did dig ditches. Like, come on.
But I don't think anybody wants to do that. One, they don't want to get their hands dirty. 2, engineering degrees are hard to get.
It's true.
They're hard. It's hard
not
work.
Everybody's smart enough to do it.
Yeah, and I would love, I say this all the time. I said it on Joe's podcast. I would have loved to have been a theoretical physicist. Like I would have loved to have done that.
It's super cool.
I'm not fucking smart enough, man. Sorry. Like I'm a dum-dum. At the end of the day, like I'm a businessman. I love doing it. I love running the company and doing this stuff. But the only people that should listen to me are the people that like quite literally are like, oh, I guess he's somewhat coherent between the F words, I guess. I don't fucking know.
And the people that work for you.
Yeah. But because they have to. I sign their paychecks.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they don't want to, then they can find another job. I don't give a shit.
I float in there somewhere.
Yeah, right. But I do have, at least just like everybody, every American, we can provide our 2 cents.
Yeah.
And I do really love the country. I think that's something that all of us have in common because we've proven that we love the country.
And it's not doomed. Like there's a future. It's happening. There's a lot of people that are learning, like with what Mike's doing, right? And being able to put word out on this podcast, when you're on Joe's, like sober information is being disseminated in a coherent fashion and people are listening.
I think that's part of why people are so angry. And I think that's part of why young, educated people are angry right now is because they bought into the propaganda. And what they expected was the millennium financially disenfranchised. We really do have to at least identify that, hey, man, these guys were lied to. They were lied to by their teachers their entire lives. They were lied to and said, you're a special snowflake. You're better. You deserve more. Yeah. You can live your dreams, go on and get your fucking degree in Venetian basket weaving. And you're going to graduate. You're going to be making 6+ figures. You're going to, marry the assigned gender fucking partner that you want. Everything is within your grasp. And oh, by the way, you can be anything you want. So you can identify as male, female, lampshade, fucking chair, you don't have to have any utility. You can be late. You can be on drugs. You can do anything. And oh, by the way, those people are waking up to the sober reality of the world.
Yep.
When they get out, they can't get a fucking job because
or hold a job.
They can't hold a job. They can't get a job. And they're saddled with a bunch of fucking debt with something that doesn't matter to anybody else in the workplace. So they're getting out and they're going, you guys lied to me. All my teachers, you guys lied to me. You said I could be anything that I wanted. I'm a snowflake. I'm special. My dreams were fucking going to be a reality. All I needed was to get this Venetian glass blowing fucking degree and bullshit. And I was going to get out and make fucking tons of money and get with my gender partner. And we were going to fucking, go off and be fucking happy. And it's like,
change the world.
No, you're not. Like, that's not the way the world works. You have to be valuable. You have to be on time. You have to be clear ahead. You have to understand how to manage or lead. You have to go out and actually create value for people, or you're not worth anything. Yeah. Sorry. Like, I apologize for saying it, but if your parents and your fucking professors and your teachers all lied to you, there's a group of people that won't lie to you. And that's fucking free range American.
That's right.
Damn right.
All right, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Take the conversation a completely different direction. Because I've had two buddies, one in Seattle and one in New Orleans, that have seen you guys opening franchises.
Oh, yeah.
What's that all about?
I mean, it's about franchises. And when we open them, I guess, so we have three different routes actually, which is we have licensing agreements for people. So if they want to license a Black Rifle Coffee, that's one deal path. Then you have franchise, and typically the franchise, what we're doing is we're prioritizing those against veterans that have run. So when I say this, combat veterans that have run businesses in the past. So because I can say these are the criteria that I can prioritize against, which is good to be king. I can say, hey, service is service, but all service is not created equal. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to the participation trophy generation. Welcome to reality, which is if you're a combat veteran, that actually means something to the franchise application. It also means something if you've run a business. So if you have those two things, chances are you're probably going to be front loaded to the head of the line. And then we have corporate owned stores. So we have two different pathways. What we're figuring out right now is how do we get people in that maybe don't have the capital requirements, because it is fairly capital intensive to come up with a franchise. It costs about $500,000 just to get one up. By the time you get your lease and your equipment and everything else, like, it's a minimum capital investment of that. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's so expensive." I'm like, sorry, I didn't create the rules, man.
Yeah,
like I just, what I mean? Like, it sucks. Yeah. It's fucking business, right? And then we have licensing agreement, we have franchise agreements, then we have corporate owned stores, and then the guys don't have the liquidity for either one of those license or franchise agreements. What they do is they can come in and run a corporate owned store for a while. And then I have another pathway, which is guys that are retiring or getting out of the mill or have retired and gotten out. They can come in and work with the company for basically a year to 2 years as, when I say a project manager, and then they can go off and we'll essentially fund one of their stores.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a guy, he's a former Force Recon guy here. Mike, I worked with him at the agency for a while. He's part of that. He's been here for almost a year now. So he's been living out back in his camper, fucking awesome. Getting ready. Yeah.
No,
Did that answer your question?
Well, yeah, of course. But we were talking about one of my buddies about Seattle, and it's like, the Starbucks capital of the world, right? Yeah. But you guys create such a following with a certain demographic of people.
Oh, yeah.
You might make a killing anywhere you go, because people will go out of the way to support you guys because of what your mission is and what you stand for and where you came from and all that stuff.
And they do.
Yeah, they do. I want to put one in Seattle. I've got a couple locations that I want, that I'm looking at.
Pike's Place next to the original.
right next door. No. Although there'll be a heroin addict overdosing right there. Shit. You might want to move a little farther north.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go. I've got a couple of places I really like in Seattle. That right across the street from their corporate headquarters. I think that'll be good. Down. I think what is that? First Ave? Is that where that is?
Yeah, just south of the city.
Yeah. No,
giving out coupons to employees.
Like Tacoma, I think is you've got a bunch of really cool places in Tacoma.
Tacoma used to be hood.
Yeah, now it's great.
Nice now.
It's fucking badass. Yeah.
They've turned that place around the last 20 years.
Yeah, and even I don't think Olympia. I don't think I would put one in Olympia. I think that's just too fucking crunchy for me.
Yeah, it probably is.
It's just
stay away.
Yeah, seriously. I
like
it's
Bainbridge.
just weird, but Vancouver is cool. And then obviously I think Spokane I think is going to be a big location.
Yeah, that'd be a good
We're going to
one,
do
for sure.
several in the Spokane area.
You guys thought about New Orleans at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've kind of got a heat map. I think 20 and 2021 is what I'm trying to do. So between corporate and franchises, we'll try to open up 20 and 2021.
It's fucking awesome.
But I mean, we've got some great guys that are in the shoot for those. Former, Delta Force dudes and former fucking, other unit guys, and it's just fucking weird. Like the
most elite warriors in the history of planet Earth are now all part of your coffee stuff.
Now we're gonna be baristas, all pulling
it's cool
shots.
though, man. It's cool because guys have been there and done that. Like at least a lot of my friends want to put that behind them. You know what I'm saying? The guys that are still chasing it, get out of here with that shit.
To each their own, man.
Of course.
But even my buddies that are still doing it, they're like. They're tired, bro.
Yeah.
Like 20 years of doing this, just getting it on.
Well, fuck, dude. I was listening to your podcast with Petrie.
Yeah.
He was talking about one of his buddies going through Ranger School at 40.
It was me. I was like my buddy fucking
Joel.
Joel.
You that said that. Okay.
My buddy Joel went through Ranger School at 40 years old because he's up for CSM. And I was like, oh my God, man. Talk about a fucking kick in the teeth. I would never.
No part of me wants to go through that.
Kick in the knee brace.
No.
Yeah.
A kick in the knee brace.
Ouch.
I'll land on my bad back.
Bro.
To each their own, man.
Yeah, he was here's another tangent. He was talking about the Charlie Company 275 show a force jump in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Were you on that?
Better than being on that. I flew in the night before.
Right.
On 47s. With an Air Force team on four-wheelers that drove up and down the whole DZ to measure the density of the dirt.
Solid.
To make sure that the C-130s could land and pick the jocks back up.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God.
So we stayed the night out there. So the rest of the company got their mustard stains except for my squad.
Oh, wow.
So that people would be funny. Mustard stain check. I'm like, the fact that you even acknowledge that you got one is fucking shameful.
I was there before you.
Yeah, exactly. I sat there all night and watched with Bohannon.
Holy shit.
It was ridiculous.
That's awesome.
But and the fucked up thing about that jump was they were bumping like private 203 gunners and SAW gunners just to put all the S-Shop officers on. Just to fucking pad their 201 file. And it's like, okay, we know that there's no enemy contact because we have a squad out there right now up on SATCOM. But fuck, let's say you lose an aircraft en route or you have to fucking, you know what I mean? You get a frago and now we're going here.
Right.
Something squirrely happens.
Yeah, exactly, dude. No. Even in the regiment, you want to believe no, dude, I'm going into the Rangers. We're not going to be plagued by all the military bullshit, but it happens everywhere to some degree.
I think that's just the nature of the beast, right? That's human nature. That's why socialism doesn't fucking work, right? It's like human nature. If your entire society, the foundation is plagued with, the government being in control, it's just, wow. Everybody just turns into a fucking dumpster fire.
Everybody doesn't want their piece of the pie. They want your pie also. That's what ends up happening.
Yeah. I mean, think about how many commanders we've had that, in even commanders or NCOs or guys that we've served with and are in our lives where you're like, oh my God, man, I fucking either hate working for this guy.
Yeah.
I cannot fucking wait to get out.
Imagine
if that was your
pretending I have
your
something to
district your district fucking mayor or whatever, and he had that much power to be like roll you up at any point in time for any infraction. And like thinking about like that, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Dude, we got a company commander whose dad was a general. So shocking how he got into Ranger Regiment. Right. And he was a shitbag commander. And he was our commander on our first push to Afghanistan. And the Delta guys were in the compound right next to us. And he didn't want any problems. He didn't want any casualties. He just wanted to do the deployment, get home, and look how awesome I did. And so I remember the CAG guys came next door. And this was like when it was new. So we didn't have like all these relationships like, hey, we're going to set in the blocking positions or we're going to set in perimeter for CAG. They came over and asked if we would. And the commander goes, I want to do engineer tape drills with everybody and do a bunch of dry runs to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music. And they're like, well, the hit is in a few hours.
Right.
We don't have time for that shit. So do you want to provide a platoon or not? And he wouldn't sign off on it. So then they went down the street and grabbed a platoon from the 101st and they fucking killed a bunch of dudes. Oh, and we're just like, oh, what the fuck, dude? Like, this was fucking when the war was just beginning, you know?
Like, I can't imagine. Like, I remember doing tape drills, right? Did that ever help you guys?
Yeah, I know. Right?
Hey, man.
This isn't what hey, believe it or not, this is not what a building looks like.
Break the sand table out.
It never helped me. I'm like, this shit doesn't fucking work, man. Like, it doesn't work.
Is this cone the front door or is it like the balcony? What's this? No. The cone isn't supposed to be there. Shit.
Like I remember doing some tape drills and going, okay, this is what the target's going to look like, right? I remember doing it. And then you get to the fucking target and you're like,
where'd this come from?
This isn't even fucking close, man.
That's funny, man.
Your mind can't imagine like the way the doors are and the fucking flow of the room and where the furniture is and all that other shit. Like it just never, like your general fucking outline, like, I mean, I get like working on SOPs just in general.
Yeah,
sure,
of course.
Go ahead. But like taping it, I'm like, oh, that's dumb. Never fucking worked. Anything else you want to talk about, Greg?
No, man. I think we covered a lot of shit.
Yeah, we did.
Where can everybody find you?
Instagram's my main one. It's Granderson33.
Granderson33.
Yep.
We'll tag you.
GR Anderson. 33.
Got it.
And it's funny, dude, because as soon as I got like a little bit of a presence on social media,
right?
Dude, all the fucking whack jobs coming out, conspiracy theories, like he has a 33 on the end of his name. He's part of this secret organization. I was like, just stop.
Just stop.
But yeah, that's my main one. Then, I mean, I have a Facebook, but I don't really do much there. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, if you're local to Seattle area, come train jiu-jitsu. We got a good gym and we're open.
Yeah, hit up Greg. We're fans, obviously, of what you got going on over here. We're just fans of freedom, just in general.
For sure.
So hit him up if you're in the Seattle area. This is Evan, Trevor, and Greg. We're signing off. Free Range American.